Ethan Blackwood stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of his Manhattan penthouse, staring at the glittering cityscape below. At 29, he was already one of the youngest tech moguls in New York, with a fortune that most people couldn't accumulate in 10 lifetimes. The skyline, bathed in the golden glow of sunset, was a testament to human ambition, much like the empire he had built. "Mr. Blackwood," a soft voice called from behind him, "would you like me to prepare dinner before I leave?" He turned to Sue, face Lily Martinez, his housekeeper, a woman whose quiet dignity always made him feel slightly uncomfortable. Unlike the parade of assistants, executives, and socialites that populated his world, there was something genuine about her that he couldn't quite put his finger on. "No need, Lily," he replied, swirling the whiskey in his glass. "I'm meeting investors at Le Bernardin in an hour." She nodded and continued tidying up the immaculate living room, which hardly needed any cleaning to begin with. The penthouse, with its minimalist design, Italian furniture, and priceless art collection, was more a showpiece than a home. Everything was precise, cold, and perfect, a fitting metaphor for Ethan's life. His phone buzzed insistently, 5 notifications in the last 10 minutes, his COO wanting to discuss the quarter's projections, his publicist about an upcoming interview with Forbes, his personal trainer rescheduling tomorrow's session, a reminder about a charity gala, and a text from Vanessa, the model he'd been seeing casually. Each message represented a compartment of his life: work, image, health, social obligations, and whatever passed for romance these days. Ethan sighed, feeling the weight of his schedule crushing him despite the spaciousness of his penthouse. He was beginning to suffocate in his own success. "Will you be attending the New Year's Eve event at the Armstrongs next week?" Lily asked, breaking his train of thought as she gathered her belongings. "Most likely," he answered automatically, though he felt no excitement at the prospect of another high society gathering. Just more champagne, more networking, more hollow conversations about market trends and property investments. Lily hesitated at the door, and Ethan noticed something unusual in her expression. For the 3 years she had worked for him, she had always maintained a professional distance. But tonight, there was something different in her eyes, a mixture of concern and something else he couldn't identify. "Sir, if you don't mind me saying," she began cautiously, "you don't seem very enthusiastic about it." The observation caught him off guard. No one in his circle ever commented on his emotional state unless it affected business. "New Year's. Parties aren't exactly known for their originality," he replied with a forced smile. "I suppose not, especially when they're always the same people," she said. Then added more softly, "Have you ever thought about seeing the world outside of all this?" Her question hung in the air, simple yet profound. Had he? The last time Ethan had done anything outside his carefully curated world was... He couldn't remember. Before he could respond, his phone rang, his executive assistant with an urgent matter. By the time he finished the call, Lily had respectfully excused herself and left. Her question, however, lingered. Throughout dinner with the investors, Ethan found himself distracted. The conversation flowed around him, market disruptions, potential acquisitions, profit margins, but his mind kept returning to Lily's words. What did she mean by the world outside? Outside of what? His penthouse? His social circle? His entire existence? The next few days passed in a blur of meetings, conference calls, and social appearances. Christmas came and went, a perfunctory affair marked only by a larger-than-usual donation to his preferred charities and a brief call to his parents, who were vacationing in the Maldives. The distance between them wasn't just geographical. They had grown apart years ago, his parents more interested in enjoying the fruits of their old money than understanding the tech world their son had conquered. It was December 30th, when Ethan found himself alone in his penthouse again, nursing a headache after a particularly tedious board meeting. His company, Blackwood Innovations, was facing pressure from shareholders for more aggressive growth, despite already dominating the market with their AI security solutions. The stress was beginning to take its toll, manifesting in sleepless nights and a persistent feeling that something fundamental was missing from his life. As if on cue, Lily arrived for her afternoon shift. She moved quietly around the penthouse, her presence somehow both unobtrusive and grounding. Ethan watched her from his home office, struck by the realization that she was probably the person he saw most consistently in his life, yet he knew almost nothing about her. "Lily," he called out, surprising himself. "What are your plans for New Year's Eve?" She looked up from arranging fresh flowers, momentarily startled by the personal question. "I'll be celebrating with my family in Astoria," she replied. "It's nothing fancy, but we always have a good time." Ethan nodded, trying to imagine what a good time looked like in Lily's world. No caviar or champagne towers, no networking opportunities, no strategic appearances. Just, what? Genuine enjoyment. The concept seemed foreign. "What about you, Mr. Blackwood, the Armstrongs' party?" "Actually, I'm thinking of skipping it this year," he said, the words tumbling out before he could analyze them. "I'm not really in the mood for another event where everyone's competing to impress each other." A small smile played on Lily's lips. That sounds refreshing. Something about her approval emboldened him. "So what does your family do for New Year's? Traditional dinner, watching the ball drop?" "A little of both," she said, her eyes lighting up. "My mum makes her famous empanadas. Everyone brings something to share, and then we all crowd into the living room to watch the countdown. After that, we go up to the roof to see the fireworks over the city. It's chaotic and loud, but it's real. Real." The word resonated deeply with Ethan. When was the last time he had experienced something that wasn't carefully orchestrated or transactional? "It sounds nice," he said quietly. Lily studied him for a moment, her expression thoughtful. Then, to his complete surprise, she said, "You could come if you want." Ethan blinked, certain he had misheard. "To your family's New Year's celebration." "Why not?" she replied, though he detected a note of uncertainty in her voice now. "If you're serious about skipping the high society party, you could experience something different for a change. Unless that sounds awful," she added quickly. It should have sounded awful. Spending one of the biggest nights of the year in a cramped apartment in Queens with strangers? It went against everything his current lifestyle stood for. Yet instead of politely declining, Ethan found himself considering it. More than considering it, he was intrigued. "Are you sure your family wouldn't mind?" he asked cautiously. "My mother never minds an extra guest," Lily said with a warm smile. "She always cooks enough to feed an army anyway." There was a beat of silence as Ethan wrestled with the idea. Part of him, the part that had been meticulously crafting his image for years, recoiled at the thought. But another part, a part he had been ignoring for too long, was desperate for something authentic. "I'd like that," he finally said, surprising them both. "Thank you for the invitation." As Lily left that evening, there was a shift in the air between them. The strict employer-employee boundary had blurred, if only slightly. Ethan stood again by his window looking out at the city. The same lights twinkled back at him, but somehow the view seemed different, as if he was seeing it through a new lens. He had no idea what to expect from New Year's Eve, but for the first time in years, he felt a stirring of genuine anticipation. Maybe, just maybe, there was something waiting for him in Astoria that he couldn't find in his penthouse or in the exclusive circles he frequented. Maybe Lily was right, and it was time to see the world outside. New Year's Eve arrived with a flurry of snowflakes dancing across New York City. Ethan stared at his closet, bewildered for perhaps the first time in his adult life. What did one wear to a family gathering in Astoria? His wardrobe consisted primarily of custom-tailored suits, designer casual wear that cost more than most people's monthly rent, and athletic clothing from brands that sponsored professional athletes. Nothing seemed appropriate for the evening ahead. He finally settled on what he hoped was his most understated outfit: dark jeans that had only cost $300, a simple cashmere sweater, and leather boots that weren't obviously Italian. As he slipped his watch on, a limited edition timepiece worth more than a luxury car, he hesitated, then replaced it with his oldest model, the one he kept mostly for sentimental reasons. His driver, Marcus, raised an eyebrow when Ethan gave him the address in Astoria. "Not heading to the Armstrongs' party, sir?" he asked, unable to hide his surprise. Not tonight, Ethan replied, feeling strangely defensive. I've been invited somewhere else. The drive from Manhattan to Queens was like crossing into another world. As they left the sleek skyscrapers behind, the neighborhoods transformed, becoming more diverse, more lived in, more real. Strings of colorful lights adorned apartment buildings, and through windows Ethan caught glimpses of families gathered together, a stark contrast to the empty luxury he had left behind. When they arrived at Lily's address, Ethan felt a flutter of anxiety. What was he doing here? He didn't belong in this world any more than Lily belonged in his, yet there was no turning back now. "Should I wait, Mr. Blackwood?" Marcus asked. "No," Ethan decided on impulse. "Take the evening off. I'll call a car service later." The apartment. Building was modest but well maintained. No doorman, no marble lobby, just a simple buzzer system. Ethan pressed the button for apartment 5B, and moments later, Lily's voice crackled through the speaker. "Hello?" "It's Ethan. Ethan Blackwood," he said, suddenly aware of how formal his full name sounded. "Come on up," she replied, the door buzzing open. The elevator was out of order, so Ethan climbed 5 flights of stairs, another novelty in his carefully curated life of convenience. By the time he reached Lily's door, he was slightly winded, a humbling reminder of how cocooned he'd become. Lily opened the door and Ethan momentarily failed to recognize her. Gone was the woman who quietly moved through his penthouse in simple professional attire. Instead, she wore a colorful dress, her dark hair flowing freely past her shoulders, her face animated in a way he had never seen before. "You came," she exclaimed, genuine pleasure in her voice. "Come in, come in." The apartment was modest in size but vibrant with life. The living room was decorated with handmade paper chains and twinkling lights. The air was thick with delicious aromas that made Ethan's stomach rumble appreciatively. And there were people, so many people, crammed into the small space, talking, laughing, and creating a warmth that had nothing to do with the thermostat. "Everyone, this is Ethan," Lily announced, leading him into the living room. "Ethan, this is, well, everyone." Everyone turned out to be a colorful mix of Lily's family and close friends. Her mother, Eleanor, a woman with Lily's same warm eyes and quick smile, embraced him without hesitation. Her younger brother, Miguel, an art student at CUNY, shook his hand with surprising strength. Her cousin Rosa and her husband David welcomed him with friendly curiosity. Friends from the neighborhood, college roommates, co-workers from past jobs, each person had a connection, a history, a place in Lily's life. "So you're Lily's boss," Elena said, ushering him toward the kitchen. "She speaks highly of you." Ethan glanced at Lily in surprise. "She does?" "She says you work too hard," Elena continued, handing him a plate, "but that you're fair and respectful, which is more than many can say about their employers." Before he could respond, Elena was ladling food onto his plate. Rice, beans, empanadas, roasted vegetables, each item added with the assurance that he simply had to try it all. The evening unfolded in ways Ethan couldn't have predicted. Instead of the stilted networking conversations he was accustomed to, people asked him genuine questions about himself. Not his company or his net worth, but his interests, his opinions on movies and music, his childhood dreams. When the topic of his business inevitably arose, it was with authentic curiosity rather than calculation. "AI security systems?" Miguel leaned forward, intrigued. "So basically, you're making sure the robots don't take over?" Ethan laughed, surprised by how easily it came. "Something like that. We're trying to ensure that as AI becomes more integrated into our lives, it remains secure and ethical." "That's actually pretty cool," Miguel admitted, "though I still don't trust my smart speaker. It's definitely spying on me." As the night progressed, Ethan found himself drawn into animated debates about politics, art, and whether the Mets or the Yankees would have a better season next year. No one seemed intimidated by him or eager to impress him. He was just Ethan, Lily's boss, who had nowhere better to be on New Year's Eve, a thought that would have mortified him a week ago, but now felt strangely liberating. Around 11, someone turned up the music, and the small living room transformed into an impromptu dance floor. Ethan, who had mastered the art of formal ballroom dancing for charity galas, but had never simply danced for joy, found himself pulled into the center by Eleanor. "You look like you need to loosen up, Mr. Big Shot," she teased, showing him how to move to the rhythm of the salsa music playing. By midnight, Ethan had abandoned any pretense of maintaining his usual composed demeanor. His hair was slightly disheveled, his expensive sweater had a small stain from a spilled drink, and his cheeks hurt from smiling more than he had in months. As the countdown began, everyone gathered around the television, plastic champagne flutes, filled with varying qualities of bubbly. Ethan found himself standing next to Lily, their shoulders almost touching in the crowded room. 10, 9, 8! The chant filled the apartment, voices raised in unified excitement. "Thank you for inviting me," Ethan said quietly to Lily, barely audible over the countdown. She turned to him, her eyes reflecting the twinkling lights around them. "Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would." 3, 2, 1, Happy New Year. The room erupted in cheers, hugs, and kisses. Before Ethan could process what was happening, Lily had given him a quick, friendly kiss on the cheek, a gesture so simple yet so unfamiliar in its authenticity that it left him momentarily stunned. Then everyone was being ushered up to the roof for the promised view of fireworks. Ethan followed the crowd up another flight of stairs, emerging onto a rooftop that offered a panoramic view of the city. In the distance, Manhattan glittered like a jewelry box, but it was the sky above them, now brightened by bursts of color from various neighborhoods' fireworks displays that captured everyone's attention. "It's not quite the view from your penthouse," Lily remarked, coming to stand beside him at the edge of the roof. "No," Ethan agreed, watching as gold and red sparks illuminated the night sky. "It's better." And he meant it. From his penthouse, the city was a distant, beautiful abstraction. From here it was alive, pulsing with the energy of millions of lives intertwined. He could hear distant cheers from other rooftops, see people waving from fire escapes, feel the communal joy of a new beginning. As the night wound down and people began to disperse, Ethan found himself reluctant to leave. The thought of returning to his silent, sterile penthouse was suddenly unappealing. But it was late, and he had already imposed on Lily's family's celebration more than enough. "I should call a car," he said, checking his phone. "Good luck with that," Miguel laughed. "Everyone in the city is trying to get a ride right now." Elena, overhearing, came over with a determined expression. "Nonsense, you'll stay in Miguel's room. He can sleep on the couch." "Mom," Miguel protested half-heartedly. "I couldn't possibly," Ethan began. "You can and you will," Elena insisted. "It's late, it's freezing, and no one should start the new year searching for a ride home at 2 in the morning. And so, in a turn of events that would have seemed absurd 24 hours earlier, Ethan Blackwood, tech mogul and Manhattan elite, found himself sleeping in a twin bed adorned with faded posters of bands he didn't recognize in an apartment in Astoria, surrounded by the lingering warmth of genuine human connection. As he drifted off to sleep, his last conscious thought was that Lily had been right. There was indeed a world outside his own, and it was far richer than he had imagined. January dawned with an unexpected shift in Ethan's life. The experience of New Year's Eve had left an indelible mark on him, subtle but persistent, like a pebble in his shoe that he couldn't ignore. He returned to his penthouse the following morning, politely declining Elena's offer of breakfast, yet found himself thinking about her empanadas throughout his first meetings of the year. Work resumed with its usual intensity, quarterly projections to review, strategic acquisitions to consider, a technological breakthrough that needed his input, but Ethan approached it all with a slightly different perspective. The drive that had once consumed him now seemed mechanical, a habit rather than a passion. Lily's presence in his home had always been unobtrusive, but now Ethan found himself noticing her more. The careful way she arranged fresh flowers, her habit of humming softly while organizing his mail, the small adjustments she made to his living space that somehow made it feel less like a showroom and more like a place someone actually lived. He began asking her questions about her family, her interests, her journey from Ecuador to New York 15 years ago. My father was a civil engineer, she told him one afternoon as she prepared to leave. When the economic crisis hit, he couldn't find work. My mother had a cousin here in New York, so we packed what we could and started over. Ethan, whose own family's wealth stretched back generations, found her story humbling. That must have been difficult. It was, she agreed. But we adapted. My father took whatever jobs he could find: construction, maintenance, driving a taxi. My mother cleaned houses and eventually started her catering business. They were determined to give Miguel and me opportunities they never had. The parallels to his own parents couldn't have been more different. While Lily's family had sacrificed everything for their children's future, Ethan's had simply provided him with a trust fund and connections, expecting him to maintain the family legacy of success with minimal guidance. Weeks passed, and Ethan found himself spending more time at home, often timing his arrival to coincide with Lily's shifts. Their conversations became the highlight of his increasingly hollow-feeling days. She was intelligent, insightful, and surprisingly well-read for someone who had never completed college, another sacrifice, she explained, to help pay for her brother's education. Miguel has always been the artist, she said with obvious pride. He sees the world differently. I wanted him to have the chance to develop that gift. And what about you? Ethan asked. What would you have studied? She smiled, a hint of wistfulness in her expression. Environmental science. I've always been fascinated by sustainable urban development, how cities can grow without destroying the natural world. The admission surprised Ethan. In all his philanthropic endeavors, generous donations to prestigious institutions, funding for tech scholarships, he had never considered the dreams that everyday people like Lily had to defer or abandon due to financial constraints. As January turned to February, Ethan found himself facing a crisis at Blackwood Innovations. Bradley Thornton, his CFO and one of his oldest friends from his Harvard days, had been secretly arranging questionable financial transactions, manipulating company valuations to attract foreign investors. When an internal audit revealed the discrepancies, Ethan was blindsided. It was just creative accounting, Ethan, Bradley insisted during a tense meeting in Ethan's office. Everyone does it. The numbers were getting stale and investors were getting nervous. I gave them what they wanted to see. You falsified financial reports, Ethan countered, struggling to reconcile this betrayal with their 15-year friendship. You put the entire company at risk. Bradley leaned forward, his expression hardening. The company was already at risk. Your focus has been slipping for months. The board has noticed, the shareholders have noticed, and our competitors are circling like sharks. I did what needed to be done to protect us all. There was a kernel of truth in Bradley's words that Ethan couldn't deny. He had been distracted, lately questioning the purpose of his relentless pursuit of growth and innovation. What was it all for? More money, more prestige? The questions had begun to haunt him, especially after witnessing the contentment in Lily's family, despite their modest circumstances. The scandal with Bradley shook the company to its core. Investors demanded answers. The board called emergency. Meetings and technology blogs began speculating about the future of Blackwood Innovations. Ethan found himself working around the clock to contain the damage, his brief period of introspection abruptly interrupted by crisis management. It was during this chaotic time that Lily approached him with unexpected news. Mr. Blackwood, she began one evening, her voice unusually formal after weeks of more casual interactions. I need to speak with you about something personal. Ethan, distracted by an upcoming board meeting, nodded absently. Of course. What is it? Lily took a deep breath. I'm pregnant. The words seemed to hang in the air between them, reshaping the atmosphere of the room. Ethan stared at her, temporarily unable to process what she had said. You're pregnant, he repeated, his mind racing to understand the implications. I didn't know you were seeing someone. I'm not, she said quietly, and the weight of her meaning slowly dawned on him. New Year's Eve, the celebration, the connection they had shared. The morning after, which he now realized had included more than just breakfast with her family. "It's mine?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. The night had been a blur of genuine emotion and champagne, culminating in a moment of connection that neither had planned or fully remembered the next day. She nodded, her composure remarkable given the circumstances. "I wanted you to know, but I don't expect anything from you. I understand this is complicated, and with everything happening at your company." "How can you be so calm about this?" Ethan interrupted, pacing his living room. "This changes everything." "Does it?" she challenged, a spark of defiance in her eyes. "Your life will continue as it has." "Mine will change, yes, but I've faced bigger challenges." Her certainty was both admirable and frustrating. How could she dismiss the complexity of their situation so easily? He was her employer, for one thing. The power dynamic alone made this ethically problematic. And then there was the timing. His company in crisis, his own identity in flux, and now this unexpected connection that bound them together in the most permanent way possible. "I need time to process this," he said finally, running a hand through his hair. "Of course," Lily agreed, gathering her things. "I just thought you should know. I can look for another position if that would make things easier." "No," Ethan said quickly, surprising himself with his vehemence. "No, don't do that. Just give me some time." After she left, Ethan poured himself a generous measure of whiskey and stood by his window, staring at the city below. His life, once so meticulously controlled, was now spinning wildly off axis. The company he had built was in jeopardy, his oldest, friendship shattered by betrayal, and now he was facing the prospect of fatherhood with a woman he barely knew, yet felt undeniably drawn to. The following weeks were a blur of legal meetings and damage control. Bradley resigned, though not before, attempting to rally board members against Ethan's leadership. The company's stock price fluctuated wildly as market confidence wavered. Through it all, Lily continued her duties with quiet efficiency, never pressing Ethan for a response to her revelation, granting him the space he had requested. It was during a particularly grueling board meeting that Ethan had an epiphany. The directors were arguing about recovery strategies, most of which involved aggressive cost-cutting measures and layoffs to restore investor confidence. "We need to demonstrate fiscal responsibility," one board member insisted. "Show that we're prioritizing shareholder value above all else." Above all else, the phrase echoed in Ethan's mind. Was that truly what his company stood for? What he stood for? Maximizing profit at the expense of everything else? Community, ethics, human connection? "No," Ethan said, his voice cutting through the heated debate. "That's not the direction we're taking." The room fell silent, all eyes turning to him in surprise. Blackwood Innovations was founded on the principle that technology should enhance human life, not exploit it, he continued, conviction growing with each word. "We've lost sight of that mission, focusing too much on expansion and market domination. It's time we reconnect with our core values." His proposal was radical: transparency about the financial irregularities, a commitment to ethical business practices even if it meant slower growth, and a new initiative focused on developing AI solutions for community development and environmental sustainability. "The future isn't just about making more money," he concluded. "It's about creating meaningful impact. I believe our investors will respect honesty and innovation with purpose more than manipulated profits." The board was divided, with several members openly skeptical of his vision. As Ethan left the meeting, he knew he had initiated a battle for the soul of his company. What surprised him was how clear his purpose suddenly felt, as if the fog of ambition had lifted to reveal what truly mattered. That evening, he found Lily preparing to leave just as he arrived home. Their interactions had been cordial but strained. Since her announcement, both of them carefully navigating the new reality between them. "Lily," he called, stopping her at the door. "Do you have a minute to talk?" She nodded, setting down her bag. "I've been thinking about what you said about your interest in environmental science and sustainable development," he began. "Today, I proposed a new direction for Blackwood Innovations, focusing on technology that supports community development and sustainability. Her expression softened with interest. That sounds like a meaningful shift. It is, he agreed, and it made me realize something else, too. He took a deep breath, finding the courage to voice what had been gradually clarifying in his mind over the past weeks. I want to be involved in our child's life, not just financially, but actually present, and I want to explore whatever this is between us, this connection that I've never experienced with anyone else. Lily's eyes widened, a mix of hope and caution in her gaze. Ethan, you don't have to say this because of the baby. I'm not, he assured her. The baby has made me face some truths I've been avoiding, but this is about more than that. It's about the fact that I've never felt more alive than I did on that rooftop in Astoria, watching fireworks with your family. It's about how talking with you makes me question everything I thought I wanted from life. A tentative smile curved her lips. Those are big realizations. They are, he agreed. And I'm still figuring out what they mean. But I know I don't want to lose whatever possibility exists between us because I was too afraid to acknowledge it. As they stood there in the fading light of day, the cityscape twinkling to life beyond the windows, Ethan felt a sense of beginning rather than ending. The path ahead was uncertain, his company in transition, his relationship with Lily undefined, fatherhood looming on the horizon, but for the first time in years, uncertainty felt like opportunity rather than risk. So, he said, offering his hand to her, would you like to have dinner with me? Not as your employer, but as the father of your child, and I hope something more. Lily took his hand, her touch warm and reassuring. I'd like that, she said simply, and in those 3 words, Ethan heard the promise of a future he never knew. He wanted until now. Spring arrived in New York with its characteristic blend of sunshine and unexpected showers. For Ethan and Lily, the changing season mirrored the transformation in their lives. Their relationship evolved cautiously, neither of them quite sure how to navigate the unusual circumstances that had brought them together. Ethan had insisted that Lily stop working as his housekeeper, a decision she initially resisted. I'm pregnant. Not incapable, she had argued, and I need the income. That's not the point, Ethan countered. The power dynamic is all wrong. How can we explore a genuine relationship if you're still working for me? They compromised eventually. Lily would take a leave of absence from her housekeeping duties, and Ethan would help her pursue her long-deferred education in environmental science through an online program. It wasn't charity, he emphasized. It was an investment in her dreams, and by extension, their child's future. Meanwhile, Blackwood Innovations was navigating its own rebirth. Ethan's new vision for the company had divided the board and shareholders. Some embraced the focus on ethical AI and sustainable technology, seeing it as forward-thinking in an industry increasingly scrutinized for its societal impact. Others, primarily those with purely financial interests, pushed back against what they viewed as a departure from profit-maximizing strategies. Bradley Thornton, though no longer with the company, had become a vocal critic, giving interviews to tech publications questioning Ethan's leadership and mental state. Ethan Blackwood has lost his edge, Bradley told TechCrunch in a particularly damaging piece. He's abandoned the aggressive innovation that made Blackwood Innovations a market leader. His sudden interest in ethical AI and community impact is a smokescreen for a lack of vision. The board should be asking serious questions about the company's direction. The article had sent Blackwood Innovations stock tumbling 8% in a single day. Investors were nervous and competitors were circling, sensing weakness in a company that had once seemed invincible. Several key engineers loyal to Bradley had resigned to join his new venture, taking valuable institutional knowledge with them. Ethan's office had become a war room of sorts. His days were consumed with investor calls, employee town halls, and strategy sessions aimed at stabilizing the company. Yet despite the professional turmoil, he found himself strangely centered, more confident in his purpose than he had been when the company was thriving financially, but rudderless ethically. "You're handling this better than I expected," remarked Rebecca Chen, Blackwood's newly appointed CFO, after a particularly tense meeting with institutional investors. The Ethan I knew 6 months ago would be having a meltdown right now. The Ethan you knew 6 months ago had different priorities, he replied, glancing at his phone where a text from Lily had just appeared. A sonogram image with the simple message, "It's a girl." The personal and professional aspects of Ethan's life continued to evolve in parallel, each with its own challenges. His relationship with Lily deepened through weekly dinners, museum visits, and long walks through the city's neighborhoods. He was fascinated by her perspective on urban spaces, how she noticed community gardens tucked between buildings, innovative recycling programs, and architectural elements designed to enhance sustainability. But there were tensions too, natural. Frictions as two people from vastly different worlds attempted to build something together. Ethan struggled to abandon his instinct for control, for shaping circumstances to his preference. Lily, fiercely independent and protective of her autonomy, pushed back when she felt he was overstepping. "I don't need you to solve everything for me," she told him one evening after he had, with the best intentions, researched and presented her with a comprehensive plan for her educational path. "I appreciate your help, but I need to make these decisions myself." Learning to give space was a new challenge for Ethan, who had built his career on taking charge and directing outcomes. With Lily, this approach backfired consistently. She valued his input, but resented any hint that he thought he knew better than she did about her own life. Their most significant conflict arose when Ethan, after a particularly moving visit to her family's apartment for Miguel's birthday celebration, suggested that Elena and Miguel move into a larger apartment that he would help finance. "Your mother works so hard," he pointed out, "and with the baby coming, wouldn't it be nice for her to have more space and be closer to us?" Lily's reaction had been swift and fierce. "My family isn't a problem for you to fix with your money, Ethan. They're proud of their home, of what they've built with their own hard work. You can't just swoop in and upgrade their lives because it doesn't meet your standards." Her words had stung, but they also illuminated the gulf of understanding that still existed between them. Ethan was learning, sometimes painfully, that his resources, while abundant, weren't always the answer. Money could solve certain problems, but it couldn't buy dignity, self-respect, or genuine connection. As May turned to June, Lily's pregnancy became more visible, and their relationship became public knowledge. The tabloids had a field day with the story. "Tech billionaire's baby with former housekeeper," screamed one headline. "Blackwood's new ethical direction includes office romance," mocked another. Lily handled the attention with remarkable grace, refusing to engage with the gossip or allow it to affect her studies or her relationships. Ethan, however, found himself unexpectedly protective, snapping at reporters who approached them, and considering legal action against the most inflammatory publications. "Let it go," Lily advised him during a quiet dinner at her apartment, now their preferred meeting place, over his penthouse. "People will always talk. What matters is what we're building, not what they're saying." Her apartment had become a sanctuary of sorts for Ethan. The modest two-bedroom in Astoria, which she shared with a nurse who worked night shifts, was cozy and unpretentious. Photos of her family adorned the walls, potted plants thrived on every windowsill, and books filled the small shelves. It was lived in, warm, and so different from his sterile penthouse that he often found himself reluctant to return home. While their personal relationship strengthened, Ethan's professional world continued to face significant challenges. The board had given him 6 months to demonstrate that his new vision for Blackwood Innovations could deliver results. 3 months had passed, and while they had launched promising initiatives, a partnership with urban planning departments to develop AI solutions for waste management, a scholarship program for underprivileged students interested in ethical tech development, financial results were still lagging. "I need something concrete to show them," Ethan confided to Lily one evening as they walked along the East River. "Something that proves we can do well by doing good." Lily was quiet for a moment, her hand resting on her growing belly. "What about Astoria?" she finally suggested. "What about it?" "It's a community in transition," she explained, warming to her idea. Gentrification is pricing out families who've lived here for generations, but there are also opportunities for sustainable development. What if Blackwood created a pilot program here, using AI to optimize resource distribution, improve transportation efficiency, support local businesses? The idea resonated with Ethan immediately. It was practical, focused, and could serve as a proof of concept for his larger vision. Moreover, it connected his professional aspirations with the community that had opened his eyes to a different way of living. Within weeks, the Atoria Community Innovation Project was born. Ethan's team partnered with local leaders, including Elena, whose connections in the neighborhood proved invaluable. They set up a small office in a converted warehouse, hired local talent, and began developing technology tailored to the community's specific needs. The project breathed new life into Blackwood innovations, generating positive press and attracting interest from investors focused on social impact. Employees who had been skeptical of the company's new direction began to engage more enthusiastically as they saw the tangible benefits of their work. As summer progressed, Ethan found himself spending more time in Atoria than Manhattan. The community had begun to feel like home in a way his penthouse never had. Elena had practically adopted him, insisting he join family dinners and teaching him to cook traditional Ecuadorian dishes. Miguel, initially wary of his sister's wealthy boyfriend, had warmed to Ethan after discovering his genuine interest in supporting local artists through the community project. But as Lily's due date approached, the unresolved question of their future loomed larger. They hadn't discussed marriage, cohabitation, or even what neighborhood they would raise their child in. Ethan had assumed they would eventually move into his penthouse, redesigned to be more family-friendly, of course, but whenever he hinted at this, Lily changed the subject. The issue came to a head during a heatwave in late August. Lily, now in her third trimester, and uncomfortable in the sweltering apartment she shared with her roommate, had reluctantly accepted Ethan's offer to stay in his air-conditioned penthouse for a few days. "This is just temporary," she reminded him as he showed her to the guest room he had prepared for her. "Until this heat breaks." "It doesn't have to be," Ethan said, seizing the opportunity to address what had been unspoken between them. "Lily, this place has plenty of room for you, for the baby, for a nursery. It makes sense for us to live together when she arrives." Lily sank onto the edge of the bed, fatigue evident in her posture. "Does it? Because I'm not sure I belong here, Ethan. This isn't my world." "It could be," he argued. "We could make it ours together." She looked around at the minimalist luxury of the room, the floor-to-ceiling windows offering a spectacular view of Central Park, the bathroom larger than her entire first apartment in New York. "I don't want our daughter growing up thinking this is normal," she said finally. "Penthouses and private elevators and staff who disappear when they're not needed. I want her connected to real life, to communities, to struggle and triumph and the value of hard work. How will she learn that living 50 floors above everyone else?" Her words struck at something fundamental in Ethan, a question he had been avoiding since their worlds had begun to merge. Was she right? Had his own privileged upbringing, insulated from real struggle, contributed to the emptiness he had felt for so long? Would his daughter be better served by the warmth and authenticity of Lily's world than the cold perfection of his own? "What if we compromise?" he suggested, sitting beside her on the bed. "We could find a place that's neither this penthouse nor your current apartment, something that represents a fresh start for both of us." Lily considered this, her hand absently tracing circles on her belly where their daughter was kicking energetically. "I'd be open to that," she conceded, "but I want to stay connected to my community, to my family." "Of course," Ethan agreed, quickly. "We could look in Atoria or nearby, somewhere that feels right for all of us." The conversation marked a turning point in their relationship, the first time they had explicitly discussed building a shared future rather than navigating their present circumstances. It was tentative and imperfect, but it was progress. As September approached, bringing slightly cooler temperatures and the promise of autumn, two significant events occurred simultaneously. Lily went into labor 3 weeks early, just as Ethan was scheduled to present the results of the Astoria Community Innovation Project to the board. The call came during his final preparation meeting. Lily's roommate, Jessica, her voice tight with worry, informed him that she had taken Lily to Mount Sinai, Queens. She said not to rush, that these things take time, Jessica reported. But she also crushed my hand when I was helping her to the car, so I think maybe you should hurry. Ethan froze, torn between his professional obligation and his desire to be with Lily. The board meeting represented a crucial moment for Blackwood Innovations, the deadline he had been working toward for 6 months, the opportunity to secure the company's new direction. But the birth of his daughter was a moment he would never get back. Rebecca Chen, observing his conflict, made the decision for him. "Go," she said firmly, taking the presentation notes from his hands. "I'll handle the board. This project is as much mine as yours at this point, and they need to see that it has support beyond just you anyway." Relief and gratitude washed over him. "Thank you," he said, already heading for the door. "I'll make it up to you." "Bring cigars," she called after him with a laugh. "The expensive kind." The drive to the hospital was a blur, traffic miraculously parting for his driver in a way that seemed almost supernatural. When Ethan arrived at the maternity ward, he found Elena already there, her calm presence a steadying force amid the medical bustle. "She's doing well," Elena assured him, squeezing his arm. Strong, like always. When he entered Lily's room, she was in the midst of a contraction, her face contorted with effort and pain. Instead of the polished, controlled tech executive, Ethan suddenly felt completely helpless. "I don't know what to do," he admitted when the contraction passed and Lily's eyes met his. She managed to smile despite her discomfort. "Neither do I," she confessed. "We'll figure it out together." The hours that followed were intense, exhausting, and ultimately transformative. Ethan witnessed Lily's strength and vulnerability, her fierce determination, and moments of fear. He held her hand, wiped her brow, and encouraged her through each contraction, finding a capacity for steadiness he hadn't known he possessed. When their daughter finally arrived, her indignant cry filling the delivery room, something fundamental shifted in Ethan's universe. As the nurse placed the tiny, red-faced infant on Lily's chest, he felt a surge of emotion so powerful it nearly brought him to his knees. Love, protectiveness, awe, and a curious humility all mingled together, reordering his priorities in an instant. "Welcome to the world, Sophia Elena Blackwood," Lily whispered to their daughter, her voice thick with tears of joy. The name, which they had decided on weeks earlier, honoring both Lily's mother and Ethan's maternal grandmother, seemed to settle on the child like a blessing. Sophia, wisdom, a quality Ethan had pursued through knowledge and achievement his entire life, only to discover its true nature in this tiny being and the woman who had brought her into the world. In the quiet hours that followed, as Sophia slept peacefully in Lily's arms and the hospital settled into its nighttime rhythm, Ethan's phone buzzed with a message from Rebecca. He checked it reluctantly, part of him no longer caring about the outcome of the board meeting that had seemed so crucial just hours ago. Board-approved continuation of the Astoria project and expanded funding for similar initiatives in 2 additional communities, the message read. Full backing for the new direction, contingent on continued progress. Turns out doing good is good business after all. Congrats, Dad. Now turn off your phone and focus on what really matters. Ethan smiled, setting the phone aside. For once in his life, he didn't need the reminder. Looking at Lily and Sophia, he already knew exactly what mattered most. 1 year later, on a crisp October morning, Ethan stood on the rooftop of a newly renovated building in Astoria. The space had been transformed into a community garden with raised beds of vegetables, flowering plants attracting butterflies and bees, and a small greenhouse where residents could grow food year-round. Solar panels gleamed in the autumn sunlight, powering not just this building, but feeding excess energy back into the local grid. Sophia, now a curious 1-year-old with Lily's expressive eyes and Ethan's determined chin, babbled happily in his arms as they surveyed what had once been merely an idea discussed during a riverside walk. The Atoria Community Innovation Center occupied the lower floors of the building, a hub of technology, education, and community development that had become the prototype for similar centers in neighborhoods across the city. "She's getting heavy," Lily remarked, joining them by the railing. "Soon she'll be running all over this garden, pulling up carrots before they're ready." Ethan smiled, bouncing Sophia gently. "She knows what she wants, takes after her mother that way." The year since Sophia's birth had been one of profound change for both of them. Ethan had indeed found a compromise in their living situation, a brownstone in a transitional area between Astoria and Long Island City. The home was spacious enough for their growing family, but firmly rooted in a real neighborhood with corner, bodegas, family-owned restaurants, and a diverse community of residents. They had renovated it together, blending Ethan's appreciation for quality with Lily's practical sense of what made a space truly livable. Professionally, Ethan had steered Blackwood Innovations through its evolution from a purely profit-driven tech company to an industry leader in ethical AI and community-focused development. The Astoria project had proven so successful that cities across the country had approached them about implementing similar programs. The company's stock, after an initial period of volatility, had stabilized and then begun to climb again as investors recognized the long-term potential of their new direction. Not all the changes had been easy. Bradley Thornton's competing venture had poached some of Blackwood's top talent and secured significant funding from investors who preferred the old model of aggressive growth at any cost. The tech media continued to pit the former friends against each other, framing their divergent paths as a battle for the soul of the industry. For Ethan, however, the competition had become less important than the work itself. The satisfaction of seeing tangible improvements in communities, of building technology that enhanced human connection rather than replacing it, had filled the void that material success never could. "Are you ready for today?" Lily asked, taking Sophia from him and adjusting her tiny sweater against the autumn breeze. "As ready as I'll ever be," Ethan replied, his stomach fluttering with a mixture of anticipation and nerves. "Your mother has been sworn to secrecy." Lily laughed. "I made her promise on Sophia's head, which is about as serious as it gets, but you know she can't resist dropping hints." Today marked the official opening of the Astoria Community Innovation Center, and Ethan was scheduled to give the keynote address. The center represented the culmination of a year's work, bringing together everything he and Lily had envisioned: educational programs for children and adults, technological resources for local businesses, environmental monitoring systems, and community spaces where residents could gather, collaborate, and build connections. But Ethan had another milestone planned for the day, one that only he and Eleanor were privy to. The ceremony was scheduled for noon, and as the hour approached, the rooftop garden filled with people from all walks of life. Local politicians mingled. With neighborhood residents, tech employees chatted with community organizers, and children darted between garden beds, their laughter carrying on the breeze. Miguel, now a rising star in the New York art scene, thanks in part to the gallery space included in the center's design, arrived with his latest installation, a series of mixed media pieces celebrating the cultural diversity of Astoria. Eleanor bustled about, having insisted on catering the event despite Ethan's offers to hire a professional service. Her empanadas, he had to admit, were far superior to anything a high-end caterer could provide. Standing at the edge of the crowd, observing the community that had formed around this project, Ethan reflected on how much his life had changed in less than 2 years. The man who had once felt empty despite having everything now found abundance in things he had never valued before. Family meals with Elena and Miguel, Saturday mornings in the park with Sophia, late-night conversations with Lily about their dreams for the future. Rebecca Chen appeared at his side, clipboard in hand. "Impressive turnout," she noted. "The mayor just arrived, and there's a crew from the New York Times here to cover it." "Thanks for handling all of this," Ethan said sincerely. "I couldn't have done any of it without you." Rebecca, who had become his most trusted ally in navigating Blackwood's transformation, smiled. "You'd have figured it out eventually. But I'm glad I could help speed things along." She glanced toward Lily, who was introducing Sophia to the mayor. They're good for you. I've never seen you so present." The observation was accurate. Before Lily and Sophia, Ethan had always lived slightly removed from his own life, one eye on the next acquisition, the next achievement, the next milestone. Now he found himself fully engaged in each moment, whether it was a major product launch or simply watching Sophia discover the texture of grass beneath her tiny fingers. When it was time for the ceremony to begin, Rebecca guided everyone to the seating arranged near the central garden. Ethan took his place at the podium, scanning the audience until he found Lily in the front row, Sophia on her lap, both of them beaming up at him. "Welcome to the official opening of the Atoria community Innovation Center," he began, his voice carrying across the rooftop. "This building represents many things: a commitment to sustainable urban development, an investment in community resources, a bridge between technology and daily life. But at its heart, this center is about connection." He paused, looking out at the diverse faces before him. "A little over a year ago, I thought I had everything: success, wealth, influence, all the things we're taught to value in our society. But I was disconnected from my community, from authentic relationships, from any real sense of purpose beyond accumulation and achievement." From the corner of his eye, he could see Bradley Thornton, who had unexpectedly accepted the invitation to the event, shift uncomfortably in his seat. Their relationship remained strained, but Ethan had extended the olive branch, recognizing that healing required facing the past rather than avoiding it. "It took being welcomed into a world very different from my own to realize what I was missing," Ethan continued. "This center is not about a wealthy tech company swooping in to fix a neighborhood that was never broken. It's about creating infrastructure for a community to build on its existing strengths, to grow in ways that benefit everyone who lives here, and to preserve what makes this place special while embracing positive change." He went on to outline the specific programs the center would host: coding classes for children, entrepreneurship resources for local businesses, environmental education, cultural events celebrating the neighborhood's diverse heritage. Each initiative had been developed in close collaboration with community leaders, ensuring that the center served real needs rather than presumed ones. As he concluded his formal remarks, Ethan took a deep breath. This was the moment he had been planning for weeks. "Before we cut the ribbon and officially open the center, I have one more thing to share," he said, stepping away from the podium and moving toward Lily. "None of this would have been possible without the vision, wisdom, and heart of one person, Lily Martinez." He extended his hand, inviting her to join him at the front. Passing Sophia to Elena, Lily rose and took his hand, her expression curious. "Lily saw value in things I had dismissed, recognized strength in what I perceived as limitation, and showed me that true connection is worth more than any material success," Ethan continued, his voice softening as he spoke directly to her now. "She challenged me to be better, not just professionally, but as a human being. And she gave me the greatest gift I could ever receive, our daughter Sophia, and a chance to build a family based on love and mutual respect." Understanding dawned in Lily's eyes as Ethan reached into his pocket and lowered himself to one knee. A collective gasp rippled through the audience, followed by excited murmurs. Elena, who had been in on the plan, was already dabbing at her eyes, while Miguel captured the moment on his phone. "Lily Martinez," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the emotions welling up inside him. "You showed me a world outside my comfortable bubble, and in doing so, you saved me from a life of hollow success. Will you continue this journey with me? Will you marry me?" He opened the small box to reveal a ring that reflected her perfectly, an ethical lab-grown diamond in a setting crafted by an Atoria jeweler who had been one of the center's first small business partners. Lily's eyes glistened with tears, but her smile was radiant. "Yes," she said simply, adding with characteristic playfulness, "though I hope you know what you're getting into." Laughter and applause erupted as Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger and rose to embrace her. Sophia, sensing the excitement, called out from Elena's arms, and soon the three of them were huddled together in a family embrace that felt like the most natural thing in the world. The celebration that followed the ribbon cutting blended seamlessly into an engagement party, with Elena producing a cake she had secretly prepared for the occasion. As evening approached, fairy lights illuminated the garden, and someone started playing music that drew people into spontaneous dancing. Bradley approached Ethan as he stood watching Lily dance with Sophia in her arms. The tension between them was still palpable, but less hostile than it had been. "Congratulations," Bradley offered stiffly. "On the engagement and the center, it's impressive." "Thank you for coming," Ethan replied, genuine in his appreciation. "It matters that you're here." Bradley nodded, his expression softening slightly. "So you seem happy. I didn't expect that when you went off on this alternative path." "I am happy," Ethan confirmed. "Happier than I've ever been. The work feels meaningful, and coming home to Lily and Sophia—" He stopped, unsure if Bradley could understand the profound contentment he had found in family life. "I get it," Bradley said, surprising him. "Or I'm starting to. Our company's growing fast, but sometimes I wonder if I'm building something that matters, or just chasing numbers on a spreadsheet." He glanced toward the dance floor. "Anyway, I should go. Early meeting tomorrow." As Bradley walked away, Ethan sensed a small crack in his former friend's armor, a hint that perhaps their divergent paths might someday converge again, if not professionally, then at least in mutual understanding. The night deepened, and eventually, only family and close friends remained on the rooftop. Miguel had taken over DJ duties, playing a mix of American pop and Latin music that kept the energy high despite the late hour. Elena taught Rebecca some salsa steps, while Lily's friends from college chatted with Ethan's core team from Blackwood Innovations. Ethan found a quiet moment to slip away to the edge of the rooftop, where he could take in the view of the city skyline. Manhattan glittered in the distance, beautiful but no longer representing the pinnacle of success in his mind. The real treasure was here in this neighborhood, in the community that had welcomed him, in the family he was building with Lily. Soft footsteps approached, and Lily joined him at the railing, Sophia sleeping peacefully against her shoulder. "Having second thoughts?" she teased, nodding toward his engagement ring on her finger. "Only about why I waited so long to ask," he replied, slipping his arm around her waist. "You knew I was planning this, didn't you?" "Elena is many wonderful things, but subtle isn't one of them," Lily admitted with a laugh. "She's been practically vibrating with excitement for days." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the city humming around them. "Do you ever miss it?" Lily asked eventually. "The simplicity of your old life, the penthouses and private jets, and not having to worry about a teething baby at 3 in the morning. Ethan considered the question seriously. "I miss the ease sometimes," he acknowledged. "The frictionless existence where problems disappeared with enough money thrown at them. But I don't miss the emptiness. I don't miss wondering what it's all for." He looked down at Sophia, her perfect features relaxed in sleep, her tiny hand clutching Lily's blouse. "This is more challenging, more messy, more unpredictable, but it's real. You and Sophia and this community we're building, it's all wonderfully, beautifully real." Lily rested her head against his shoulder. "It won't always be this perfect, you know. We'll have fights and challenges and days when we wonder what we've gotten ourselves into." "I'm counting on it," Ethan replied, kissing the top of her head. "A life without challenges isn't a life at all, it's just existence. You taught me that." From the center of the rooftop, Elena called out to them, "Come, we're doing the final toast before Miguel has to pack up his equipment." They rejoined the group, where glasses of champagne and sparkling cider had been distributed. Elena, who had embraced her role as the family matriarch with enthusiasm, raised her glass. "To Ethan and Lily," she began, her accent more pronounced with emotion. "When you first brought this boy to our New Year's celebration," she said to Lily with a wink toward Ethan, "I knew he was lost but looking. And when you look with an open heart, you find what you need. You two found each other, and in doing so, you have created something beautiful, not just Sophia, though she is perfect." This drew appreciative laughter. "But this community, this purpose, this